Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
Wanted to begin by sharing with you all something that happened last night at home. I found my daughter in her room putting on some green socks on her hands and her feet, and she had a green shirt on. She's 4. And she put on a headband with frog eyes. I think we have a picture of it we can show you. There she is. She was hopping around the house saying, "Ribbit, ribbit." She was a frog. She was full method acting, doing the frog. She was sitting at the table, the dining room table, sitting like a frog, and she would tell me something she wanted to eat, and I had to feed it to her. We had chips and salsa. She wanted salsa. She would point to the salsa, "Ribbit, ribbit." I would give her the salsa. And so this went on for a while. I indulged her. It was fun. And after a while, she leaned over to me and she said, "I have a secret to tell you. I'm not a frog. I'm Felicity." This didn't come as a surprise to me, of course, but I share this with you this morning because I'm wondering, do you feel like you've been someone else lately? Yeah, like you're wearing a mask over yourself. Think about all that has been going on with the pandemic, with hurricane season, the elections, the injustice in this country, the unnecessary violence, so much that it can feel like, what's the next thing that's going to happen? What do I need to be on alert or prepared for? And we find ourselves on edge. We find ourselves leaning into what is called our negativity bias. We want to feel okay about that because we all have it. We all have this negativity bias that we've inherited from our ancestors that helped us survive when we were out in the jungle and there was a predator that when the tiger was coming, we heard the rustling in the bushes and we fled and we survived. Or Reverend Karen shared about her trip to Yellowstone and looking out for bears. You might still need that negativity bias. She didn't get attacked by a bear. She knew how to use that well. But nowadays, normally in a regular day-to-day situation, we're not worried about bears coming to attack us or any animal. This is something that how our brains have been wired to operate in this way where we're looking out to see what's negative and how do I respond. We might even be doing this in Zoom meetings or Microsoft Teams or however you are doing things nowadays where you may be scanning for what do I need to be concerned about, what do I need to react to, respond to, recognizing that this is a survival-based technique and we can evolve beyond that. It's not a healthy way for us to move in our modern world. In his book, Original Goodness, Eknath Easwaran shared about that we wear binoculars. These are my opera glasses. They're not binoculars. But I can try to imagine if I was walking around trying to see the world through them. That would definitely give a different perspective. But he says that the lenses that we see the world through, that we have 2 different lenses. That one of them we see the world through is I, and the other one is not mine, not mine, not mine. So we're not seeing the world in a balanced way. So in the not mine, we're seeing mine, and then we're seeing not my family, or not my country, or not my candidate, or not my race. And we're seeing this in an unbalanced way. That is the typical way that our vision is my needs as opposed to yours. I'm right, and therefore you must be wrong. So we want these influences in our consciousness to be removed so that we can return to our own original purity, our own goodness. That's what I wanted to speak about, seeing goodness today, because of all the struggle that we've been through lately, that we've been feeling ourselves out of alignment, and that our spiritual practice is to come back into alignment with that truth. And so I wanted to speak to that. How do we do that? How do we evolve past our natural negativity bias? Well, it's not by wearing rose-colored glasses and just pretending, well, everything's hunky-dory and this isn't happening, and pretending that there aren't problems or difficulties. There are. But the good news is that we can rewire our brains and heal some of this negativity bias by practicing seeing goodness, incorporating that into our lives, genuinely seeing what is good, what is nourishing in ourselves and in others. I find it interesting that we're walking around wearing masks all the time. So we can't see each other's expression. We can only see the eyes. They say the eyes are the windows of the soul. So we have to look a little more carefully at each other to really get who the person is, the essence. In that book I referred to, Original Goodness, Eknath Easwaran tells this wonderful story of when he was teaching English in India. He had a class of Muslim students, and the men, you could see their faces, but the girls were, or the boys and the girls had their faces covered. They were completely veiled. And he went to the principal of the school and he said, "This is very difficult for me to teach Shakespeare when I'm teaching to these girls and I can't see their expression. I don't know if they're getting it. I don't know if they're enjoying it. I can't see their expression." And he said, "We get this kind of response from new teachers all the time." He's like, "You will learn to see beyond the veil and get to sense who they are." And he said that as he continued to teach them, he would notice a ruffle of the veil as one of the girls giggled, or a smile that moved, that he could glance from under the veil. He got to sense them. Even with the veil on, he got a sense of who they are because he connected to their essence in that way. We can learn to do that, and it takes a commitment to our practice to do that. So the first thing to do is to remember that the nature of the universe is that God is good. We walk centered in principle. There is only one presence and one power, and that is God, the good, omnipotence. And so do you really believe and live in that? My spiritual director asked me that. He said, "Do you believe that God is your source?" And I had to think, well, yes, I believe it. Intellectually, I believe it, but am I living that as my truth? That's the very first principle of unity when you study what we call the 5 basic principles, and way more than that. But that's the essence, is that God is good, and God is the nature of the universe, right? So living centered in that principle. All of what I found interesting is that the mystics tell us, and all the scriptures of religions throughout the world tell us, that we are made in the image of God. And so if we hear it in so many ways, we can recognize that that is the truth, that God is good, God is everywhere present, and we are created in the image of God. That divinity in us, that essence, that light, that spark is called so many things, meant to tell us that beyond the mask that we wear of personality, of biases, of opinions, of history, of problems that we've had, is the real truth of who we are. And so we come back to that again and again. And we don't have to figure out how to make ourselves good. We just let go of the mask. We let go of that which is uncovering the truth that is already who we are. So the mask, what are our masks? Our habits, our conditioning, our past mistakes. And I think about, I've been doing this forgiveness work with Reverend Sheila, radical forgiveness work, and we've been healing not just forgiveness in our own lives, our parents, of course, there's always forgiveness work, family forgiveness work. What about collective forgiveness work? That we all have a responsibility as being part of collective consciousness to do collective forgiveness work, to free ourselves of the burden that we've carried from the pain of what is going on with us collectively that we're connected to. And part of this, there's a worksheet, radical forgiveness worksheet, and in it, it says, I am willing to see the perfection in the situation. And so Sheila always says, just put, when you have a place in willing or unwilling, just put willing. You just have to be willing. It may be so hard to see the perfection in a situation where people are being challenged or harmed or deprived in some way, that all we have to do is to be willing to see the perfection and let Spirit reveal that. And it may take time for that, for us to let go of those masks and things we've carried in order to allow that to be revealed to us, and just trust that that is being shown in a way. Because if we want to make a change in the world, this is the consciousness that we make it from, to look to the goodness and then work in that direction of the goodness, the possibilities, the potential. In the Beatitudes, where Jesus was teaching us about ways to be, attitudes of being, he said, "Blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God." I always found that fascinating when I was a child. I said, wow, I want to be able to see God. Well, now I know that God's not a being, that it's going to show up before me, that God is the whole. So we won't see the whole of all, right? We'll see God in the individual, in part, in the way that we show up in part. When we're pure of heart, and what does it mean to be pure of heart? It means to return back to that original essence, that love, that light that we are, that is beyond circumstance, that is eternal, right? Eric Butterworth said that we're not here to set the world right, but to see it rightly. And we don't see the world as it is, but as we are. So when we shift and remember who we are, when we come back into that awareness of the goodness that we are, of the light that we are, of the truth that we are, we begin to see it in the world. So that's a practice that we can do. And to recognize that when we do that, we have the potential to see the good in every situation. There's a story that I want to share with you that you may have heard before, but it's a perennial story, which means it continues to have truth for us. Throughout time, we can continue to remember it. It helps me through difficult times, which is why I want to share it with you today. And it's a story of the Zen farmer and his nosy neighbor. This is a Taoist story. And one day, the Zen farmer it's at the end of the day, and he's sitting on his porch with his nosy neighbor, Katja. And they're having pastries and drinking tea, and they're looking out towards the farm and chatting, and suddenly a storm is brewing, and there's a bolt of lightning, and it shakes the horse. It spooks the horse, and the horse runs for the mountains. And that's his only horse. And the neighbor says, "Oh, this is a tragedy. This is terrible. How are you going to work your farm without a horse? You must be devastated." And the farmer says, "Could be bad, could be good. We shall see." So, a couple days later, the old horse comes back, and he brings with him a dozen wild young horses and to work on the farm. And the neighbor, Katja, she is elated. She said, "You must have really good luck. Now, we thought you were going to be devastated by losing this horse, but here now you have 13 horses. You must be excited, and you are going to be the most prosperous farmer in the area." And the farmer says, "Could be bad, could be good. We shall see." A couple of days later, the farmer's 18-year-old son starts to work with the horses, and he's trying to tame these wild horses so they can work on the farm. And he gets on the horse, and the horse gets startled, throws the son off of the horse, and the horse breaks his leg. And they're sitting there drinking tea again at the end of the day, and they witness this, and the nosy neighbor says, this is devastating. I thought it was bad when your horse left, but now your son has broken his leg. He can't help you on the farm. You're old. How are you going to work this farm without your son's help? And the farmer says, could be bad, could be good. We shall see. A few days later, a war breaks out in the land. And the emperor sends his men to this village to recruit the young men. And all of the young men of the village are called to be enlisted in the army, except the 18-year-old son, because he had the broken leg. So he didn't have to go to war. That night, the neighbor says, oh, this is very fortunate that your son doesn't have to go to war, that he gets to stay even though his leg's broken. And the farmer says, could be bad, it could be good. We shall see. Well, after time, the son's leg mends and it heals, and he only has a slight limp, and he's able to start working on the farm again. And eventually, unfortunately, all the boys that left to go into the army died in the war. And so this farm, the villagers needed the food, and the farm became very prosperous and served the villagers, and they were so happy to have the harvest from this farm. And they said to the farmer, you are the most prosperous man in the land. This must feel amazing. You know, you're just so fortunate. And he says, could be bad, could be good. We shall see. We shall see. So can we hold a consciousness of we shall see around the pandemic, around the struggles, the election, all the turmoils and troubles? We shall see. We don't know how it will unfold, and we do know that we can bring our love and our consciousness and our awareness of the potential of goodness to that situation. I know for those of us who have parents of young kids, this is a big weekend for us because many of us are preparing for our children to go back to school, virtually, maybe some in person. Some have already started school. And that can seem like a big challenge. And I know for me, my daughter is starting pre-K4, so this is going to be her first experience of elementary school. And I thought, wow, you know, she's going to be online, she's not going to be with kids, and it's going to be hard. In my mind, I'm like, it's going to be hard. It's just going to be hard, right? And we had to meet the teachers on Friday. And we meet and the teachers they're all prepared, and they have their PowerPoints, they introduce themselves, and my daughter's sitting there, she's excited. She's like, oh, these are my teachers, and then she's going to do a language school, and she has a Spanish teacher and an English teacher. She's excited. She's saying hi to her friends, and I thought, this is in my mind that is hard. Not hard for her. To her, this is the normal, the new normal. This is how you start pre-K4, online, with your friends on video. There is good. And think about the teachers are probably having to recreate their lesson plans, bring some new energy and life into it because they have to do it a different way. There's goodness in this that we can see and we can honor and recognize. So what potential for good can we see? Nelson Mandela says, it never hurts to see the good in someone. They often act the better because of it. So let us do that. Let us practice seeing the good in everyone, recognizing that every child, every person is born with innocence and a set of unique gifts. The mystics call this the secret beauty of each being. We can see this, we're practicing this in our work, in our home, in our classroom. I want to share with you one more story to close our time together, and it's a story from our Unity history. It's from 1902. Charles and Myrtle Fillmore were growing the Unity movement, and they had so many people coming to their Sunday meeting. They had a Sunday meeting. What they were doing back then, they weren't a church yet. They were meeting in the afternoon. People were going to their church, and then they were coming in the afternoon to study and learn principles together, spiritual principles together. And their meeting in the afternoon became so big that they had to rent this hall. And as they were growing, the Fillmores formed these committees to help structure these events and things that were going on. They formed a building committee. they had a vision to purchase a building. And the interesting thing about this building committee is, as it's told in the story of Unity, it recounts all the history of our movement. It says that the people who were on this committee thought it was a joke. The board, they were like, we don't have money, and they were struggling back then. They were working on love offerings and people giving, and it wasn't always helping them to grow the way that they needed to and have the space. And so Charles just had this vision, and he saw the goodness and the potential. He kept talking about it, and one of the board members finally said, okay, here's the start of your building campaign, and threw a penny on the table. Now, back then, a penny wasn't a lot of money. It's not a lot of money. It wasn't a lot of money back then either, even in 1902. And Charles Fillmore saw that penny. He picked it up. He took it. He gave thanks to God for it. He blessed it. He put it in a bank account. And it took years for them to raise the money to get their building. And finally, they purchased that big piece of property, which is its own incorporated village, Unity Village, where they have all the buildings, where they have had the activities of Unity World Headquarters, Unity Worldwide Ministries is there. So he did have his vision come to fruition, but he had to be centered in faith, and he demonstrated that faith for those people that were on that board and in his community. So can we have faith in a penny? Just a little piece of something that gives us the nugget that we need to know that this good that we envision is just starting to grow. I see it in so many places, this good starting to grow in our spiritual community and what kind of work that we're doing, things that have happened online that ways that people are connecting with us that wouldn't have connected with us before when we were just on campus. So much good coming forth. So as we close today, I want you to remember the purity of your own heart, your own original goodness, the awareness of the truth and the wholeness of life. And I want to inspire you to send a text to someone who maybe you haven't connected with in a while and let them know what you appreciate about them. Send that energy forth in the universe. It'll only take a moment to do that, and know that you are growing an awareness of goodness in the world. Thank you for your time this morning. God bless you.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.